data management platforms. Right. An overview of security considerations when using data management platforms, an insight into privacy and ethical data use, an overview of cookies, and then ethical data practices. Here's the, let me just try and get back into Slido. So if you have any questions, please feel free to ask them, and I'll do my best to answer them at the end. Okay, so what is big data? It'll mean different things depending on, like if you were doing an overall business course or a finance course, then big data would mean different things there, or rather you have a different focus on the data, so we're only focusing really on what big data we're using in marketing. So in marketing, big data comprises the gathering, analysing and using of massive amounts of digital information to improve business operations. In digital marketing now, as we've seen, when it comes to the metrics and analysis lecture that we did this morning, we basically have a growing, practically infinite possibility of the amount and types of data that we can capture. We do capture a lot more than we used to, whether we actually use that data or not effectively, some of which we're going to come on to in a bit. But the data that we do get, we can use it to our advantage, but it can also be a bit of a risk. The data that we're collecting could be usernames, passwords, email address, the way our customers are communicating with us on social media, any of the ways that we have discussed, basically any touch point that we have with a customer, we are collecting data, we're automatically collecting that data. It's not a manual process, it's very much an automated process about collecting that data. And that can all be considered big data. So we've got a few different types. So customer data helps marketers understand their target audience. The obvious data of this type are facts like names, email addresses, purchase histories, that means what they've bought from us, web searches, what they've actually searched for. You can also gather their attitudes from social media activity, surveys, and online communities. Financial data, of course, helps you measure performance and operate more efficiently. Your organisation's sales and marketing statistics, costs and margins fall into this category. So you'll be gathering data about which products give you the most profit, and then you can use that data to push those profits that make you more profit, that you have more of a profit margin on, using that data. You can also include competitors' financial data, such as pricing, in this category. You can also get your competitors' financial data from their annual reports as well. All big companies, public companies, have to publish their financial reports, which can make very interesting reading. I work on a business show, and we're often looking at that data. Operational data relates to business processes, which may be to do with shipping and logistics, customer relationship management systems, which deal with like email marketing, but also to do with what they've bought and how long it's taken to get to them and things like that. Or feedback from hardware sensors, so like if you get a delivery and they have to scan a barcode or something, or a physical sensor in a physical shop, to scan a barcode. All of that goes back into operational data. So analysing all this logistical and operational data can help you improve performance and reduce your costs. And you can streamline all of these steps now using data management tools, which more and more are using AI as well to sort of analyse that data. By the way, I am not an expert in AI, so any questions relating to exactly how AI is used in all these processes, if I was an expert in AI, I would be doing that. That would be my job, and I'd get lots of money, lots and lots of money for it. So, data management platforms. What are they? They are very simply, they're platforms that gather data, organise it, and share it with other marketing technology systems. So they might work with your customer relations management system, they might work with your analytics systems, your email marketing technology system. All of these things need to work together if they're going to perform properly. All this data, the data processing that you can do can be done manually. When I was around your age, I would do jobs that involved doing a lot of very manual data processing in Excel, and yeah, a lot of it, you're very unlikely to get people doing those jobs that I used to do now, because it is done automatically. It's done by very efficient data management platforms, and which is great because just the amount of data that we are getting now and we're generating would be a very, very inefficient job for a human to do. So as I mentioned, they gather data from a range of sources internally. They might be getting data from your customer relationship management software or from websites, the email, but they also might connect to external partners who are providing research on our target market, demographics about our audiences, trend-related research to try and predict what our customers are going to want in 6 months, and taking those trends, applying them to the data that we have about our current customers, and getting them to make sense, to automate that process of going, well, these customers have been buying these things over the last couple of years. Our research predicts that they're going to be buying these sorts of things in the next couple of years. So there are tools that will help do all of that to help us make strategic decisions. So, by gathering, organising and sharing data, data management platforms help us as marketeers design very personalised, targeted ad campaigns. Really, all the processes of big data that we do all leads back to personalisation and providing a much more targeted service for our customers, because research shows that personalisation and targeting is what makes sales. It's what turns prospects into customers. It can also help extend your reach beyond customers that you already know about, beyond your known customer base. We'll be using predictive data management to find new customers. As a digital marketeer, but as any employee, anyone working for a company, the most important thing is that you are profitable to them. If it is a sort of sale, if it's a company, a profit-making company. So by using data management platforms, by getting these decisions to be made automatically, or getting this analysis to be done automatically, you can be more efficient. You can spend your time as intelligent, educated, experienced professionals, maybe creating creative content or strategic decisions. But what's really, really important for businesses is to actually make use of the data you're collecting. Because you are, as any business, is collecting so much data, but if they're not using a tool like this properly, then that data isn't being put to good use. It's just a missed opportunity. I would say that these data management platforms, they're not they're not cheap, because they work magic. It's not something that you just get to use for free, effectively. So they are an investment into the company, but a very valuable one if you have lots of customers. The sorts of there's two of the main ones: Adobe Audience Manager and Google Marketing Platform. But companies might also have their own bespoke solution. So I used to work for an electricity company, and I was very surprised that the person who created the software that we use to manage our customers was actually working in the room with me, which I was very surprised about. So they created their own bespoke software. So if you're thinking about linking big data, if you want to mention big data in your assessments and how you might use it as a recommendation, you might make a recommendation that the company that you've chosen uses one of these platforms. And you don't need to know whether they do or not. You could do some research into whether they do or not. You don't need to know, but you could say if they don't already, they could use a data management platform to help make their whole data gathering and processing and analysing more efficient. So security is massively important. The data that we have got on our customers that they are giving up to us. I'm waiting for the mumbling to stop. The data that you have given up, your precious data that you've given up, is very, very valuable, both to you and to people who might steal it. It's also very valuable for us. When you give up your data to anyone, you are exposing yourself to a little bit more risk. So you really need to know, you need to be able to trust the company to be able to take care of your data. Because as I said, it includes email addresses and passwords. It might also contain some financial data, where you live, what you do, your location, things like that. We, as businesses, will also have very sensitive data about our operations that we don't want competitors to know, we don't want general public to know about. So this is one of the reasons why having your own bespoke data management platform might not be a great idea, because you need to know that security is very, very inbuilt and that it's keeping up to date with whatever the latest threats are. I personally have had lots of notifications that my data has been the subject of a data breach from one of my employers had a data breach last year. My pension provider had a data breach as well, which includes financial information. And I think that pension provider is actually being sued by customers because of that data breach. There are lots of smaller ones where it will just be like an email marketing list that you signed up to, or a website that you signed up to years ago. I get quite a lot of notifications. There's been a data breach for this website that I'd completely forgotten that I'd even signed up to at some point in the past. So they do happen frequently, with some being more serious than others. Google also sends me a notification when it finds my details on the dark web, which is always a slightly terrifying one to get. Don't really know what to do about it, but yeah, you get those emails through to tell you when you've been, your information has gone elsewhere. So yes, if you leave your data open to breaches, you as an individual, you're probably not going to last long with the business, but also the business, as trust is really, really important for consumers, it can really have a big impact on your business. So how much do customers trust businesses to take care of their data? This relates back to the privacy paradox that we were talking about yesterday. So we, as customers, share so much information, and we give it up freely by accepting the terms and conditions, by ticking the box that says, yes, I'm happy for cookies to track me. But at the same time, we don't really believe or recognise that we have willingly given up that data. So it's a paradox where when customers are being targeted, when they've got, for example, ads following them around the internet, or when you feel like you've been spied on in order to be sold something, people don't like it. They get upset about it, but at the same time, the research shows they are more likely to buy something as a result of that targeted advertising. So you're sort of giving up you give up your data because you've weighed up the risks. You've decided, I want this product, or I want to enter this competition, or I want to sign up to this mailing list to get a discount. And at that moment, you've weighed up the choices and you've decided to give up your data. But then a day, a week, a year later, when you realise how your data is being used, you're like, hang on a minute, I don't want you using my data in this way. So we are difficult, because all humans are difficult to manage in that way. It's not enough to just say, you sign the terms and conditions. So yes, it's very important that we actively, proactively let customers know how we are keeping their data safe. Once they realise that we've got so much data on them, we need to be transparent as businesses to say, look, this is what we're doing with your data, and we're going to have some examples of that. So this research is about digital advertising being fraught with questionable practices, or so people really believe. And it all comes down to cookies, really, which are small text files. They store information on your browser. And for a tiny, tiny text file, they can contain an extraordinary amount of information, and they're very, very clever. So they can remember information like your login and password details, so you don't have to keep on logging in each time. That's one of the reasons we like to give up that data, so we don't have to keep logging in. To track your online behaviour, including your sites visited and pages viewed. One of the things we like about that is that you don't have to type in a full address all the time. You can find your most recently visited sites and things like that. So on one hand, we know it's useful, which is why we allow it. On the other hand, we don't like it because we're worried about our privacy and ethical use of data. There is no easy answer to this, by the way, which is why it's called the privacy paradox that we did yesterday. It is very difficult to square it and to get your messaging right. Google and Apple have both said that they want to phase out the use of party cookies. They want to stop cookies being used because they do track so much data and because people don't like them. So over time, in the future, we are probably going to end up without cookies, but we don't really know what that's going to mean for us as digital marketers yet. So this is a video which, come on, what's going on? Okay, Microsoft PowerPoint is not responding. I am just going to have to, probably going to have to restart my computer. Let's restart the program, see what happens. My computer is probably not used to this heat, to be honest. It's the first time it's ever been out of England. It's like, well, no, I'm used to being in 10-degree heat. It also doesn't normally do this many lectures in a week. This may be some time. Feel free to talk amongst yourself. This is your talking opportunity. That's my mum, by the way. That's in a nice part of Yorkshire. You can't really see much of it. It's sort of a tunnel. It's an old abbey that you can go visit if you ever come to Yorkshire. It's opening. It's just taking a while. I've opened the wrong slideshow. It's not very useful. Okay, I think it actually might be that next slide that's crashing it. So, oh, there we go. Oh no, are you going to work? Okay. Right.
This website for Jeans just saved a cookie onto my browser.
Right.
That's it. A string of letters and numbers that form a unique ID to help the site grow. The site's you.
I don't think, yeah, I don't think it's going to work. Anyway, we'll leave the video because of the sound anyway. It's there, the link is there, and it's quite interesting. It's actually got the person who invented the cookie in that video explaining how it works. So it's got the history of it, and it just has the very technical data about how it works, which is fascinating because we don't really think about it. We hear about them, we don't really understand how they work, and it's just a nice, useful sort of technical aspect to see how this thing generates so much data about us in a tiny little text file. So yeah, as I mentioned, we don't really know what's going to replace the cookie. It's probably going to be AI based, you would have thought, but ultimately what we might need to do as digital marketers is gather more sort of qualitative data from our customers or potential customer, maybe from social media, and from surveys and market research, but to try and get it on a more individual basis rather than relying on the technology. But on the other hand, I'm fairly certain that something even more powerful than the cookie will come along and will be used, that will be artificial intelligence based. So, Netflix, do you use Netflix? Yeah, cool, that's good. Universal. One of the nice things, actually just as an aside, one of the nice things about Netflix is it means that in other countries we get to see content made for all over the world. So for example, like Korean content like Squid Game was absolutely massive. I think it's like Netflix's biggest ever show, and it's Korean, which is incredible. Like that just wouldn't have happened without Netflix and without the ways that it works, which is all to do with big data. So Netflix will use data to do a lot. It determines obviously how many people are viewing the program, which helps it decide how much to spend on content, either original or curated that they get from elsewhere. It'll help them decide whether to cancel, which they sadly do quite often, or continue the program and invest money elsewhere. As a viewer, it can be frustrating, can't it, when you've been watching something, you love it. After 2 seasons, they say, well, the data isn't there to support it, so it's going. They interpret viewing metrics such as how long each program was viewed, and from where, and whether the viewers liked the content. So they will know within minutes of a program going live on Netflix, of it being available for people to watch, that data is being analysed immediately. How quickly are people responding to the thumbnail? How much of are they playing it and then disappearing, going and watching something else? But and that data is used individually to decide what content recommendations to give to individuals. Probably everyone in this room will have a different homepage when you go onto Netflix, and I can guarantee that yours is completely different to what I'm being recommended. they really personalise all the data that they get. They make use of every bit of data that they get from customers. So they use it to make content recommendations, to increase usage, also drive customer engagement. The customer engagement from Netflix, they want you to be pressing like, thumbs up, thumbs down, those sorts of things, double thumbs up. And they use that data not just to recommend you content, but also to negotiate how much they're going to spend on new content creation. So that's negotiating with program makers, with writers, with, they will pay, if the data tells them that a particular new thing is going to be very successful, then they will spend more money on it, and they know that using their big data analysis. Obviously, data on subscriptions. We recently had some, I think they recently showed that they had another 9 million subscribers in like the last month or something, which they attribute to stopping people from being able to share passwords so much. So it's not just about the content, it's also on subscriptions and finding out why. And they need to know what platform's being used most to stream the service, because they need to know where to invest their money to improve user experience. Because better user experience means better customer retention. 86% of the content watched on Netflix is recommended content. It's content that has 86% of the things people watch is because they've been recommended it by Netflix, so they press play, rather than searching for a particular program, or rather than like in traditional TV where it's on, so you watch it, you choose which channel to watch. So that's why getting that right is so incredibly important, because if what you're seeing on your home screen is stuff that you don't really want to watch, then are you going to search for it? I mean, there are things that I see on Friends' Netflix screen that I didn't even know this existed, because it's not being shown to me. So, yeah, it's very powerful. Things that you could, that Netflix can do to kind of push more, that they might decide based on the data that they get about whether these are worth doing. They can sometimes directly email subscribers about upcoming movie and series releases to potentially increase viewership and retention. Pushing content through notifications within the app or on thumbnails based on the viewer's viewing history to reinforce their customer experience and increase viewership of other content. And they use demographic data for advertisers. Well, they could use demographic data for advertisers. Most ad-based platforms really care about demographics. What Netflix cares about is what you as an individual like. They don't care what 18 to 25-year-olds in Vietnam want. They care what you want personally. Whereas most platforms, they are really thinking about those audience segments. So that's why Netflix is so powerful. They invest a lot into their data management, without a doubt. So KPI means key performance indicators, and they're important. In your assessment, you kind of need to think about KPIs. We'll talk about it a bit more tomorrow in the assessment session. But basically, what you want to think about are these. These are the sort of data points that you might want to get. So where did the customer come from? What digital channel did they come from? Like, did they come from Instagram or physically? Like, where in the world are they from, or where in the city are they from? What demographic data do we know about them, or attitude data? What are their behaviours? What do they do? What did they buy? How did they buy it? How did they hear about us? So these are key pieces of information that you might want to get from your customers in your to do some data analysis. So the way that you can kind of use this data is like, what did they buy? You might also look at how often they buy. If they're buying something more than once, you might want to recommend a subscription to them. which Amazon does. If they've got a subscription already, you might analyse how often they're sort of adjusting that subscription, and have an automated process where it's going to recommend that they change the frequency.